Hey guys, it's Nick, and it's that time of year again. It's the 2019-2020 Chicago Blackhawks season preview. Yes, Nick, you may be thinking, Nick, there's 63 games until the regular season. But it's not too late to do the preview because I feel like this offseason has been good enough, and we are in the middle of it where the Hawks are getting close to training camp. The Hawks, going into the 2019-2020 season, are celebrating the 2009-2010 Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks this season. Should be a good ceremony year for the Hawks celebrating their great Stanley Cup win 10 years ago, where Patrick Kane shot the puck in and nobody saw it go in. But that's not about that. It's about the season preview for this year's team, where the Hawks had a great offseason drafting Kirby Dach, third overall, bringing back a familiar face, addressing the defense, and addressing the goaltending for this year. So we are looking forward for a good season out of this team, and let's get into this preview, why not? So here we go. Okay, I'm going to start off with my projected lines for this year's team. You may notice one line as a familiar line, the first line. The first line I wanted to keep the same line as what we had at the end of the year of Caggiula, Taves, and Kane. That line gelled well when they were paired together in the middle of the season, and it showed when Caggiula was healthy, he was good enough to play with elite talent like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, which that is a good thing. Caggiula brought the grit that line needs. Toews brought the two-way game, and Kane, he brought the pure skill and talent of putting up big points in big moments. Caggiula fed the puck so many times with Toews and Kane on the same line. That's why I feel like the first line needs to stay intact from last year to keep that chemistry rolling. So, I'm going to talk about the second line now, where the second line is pretty similar, but not. There's a new guy on it. Where on the second line I kept it to DeBrincat, Strome, and Nylander. Nylander is in this lineup because as I speak right now, as you can see in the rotational where Perlini has an asterisk on his name, he is currently unsigned and still an RFA. He's still part of a Blackhawks organization. If Perlini signs, when he signs, I could see them putting Perlini back with DeBrincat and Strome. That line works together. DeBrincat and Strome, you cannot separate those two star talents. Strome feeds the puck over to DeBrincat, and DeBrincat snipes it. You can't split those two up. That's a great line to have with those two on the same pairing. Nylander is a wild card. He's coming from the Buffalo Sabres. Alex Nylander is getting probably his first opportunity as a full-time NHLer this year. Where in Buffalo, he was not really remembered as a player. He was basically sent down into their AHL affiliate. But I think the second line of DeBrincat, Strome, and Nylander, or if Perlini signs, putting Perlini in, Nylander comes out, it's all messed up. But I like that, how that's set up. Third line, as you can see, I did put the third overall selection of the 2019 draft, Kirby Dach, at center, where his wingers will be Brandon Saad and welcome home of Andrew Shaw. Yes, I put this line together as my projected third line because Saad brings a height and skill that Doc, being a young player, could use to develop his game with. Shaw brings that grit and helps feed the puck over, and if Doc gets thrown out of the face-off dot, there's no worries. Shaw can fit into the circle and potentially take a draw. That's why I have that third line together, because I feel like Doc being able to, how he's shown himself in the development camp and how he has played, I can see Kirby making it out of training camp and making it onto this year's roster for opening night. That's why I do have the third line, how it's set up. The fourth line, this one can be anyone on the rotational coming in and coming out, but this is the fourth line for me. I have Dominic Kubalik on the wing with David Camp and Ryan Carpenter. I think this is a good line where Carpenter can fit into the center spot if needed. Camp could go to the wing if needed. Kubalik, he's a wild card because he's new to the team. He hasn't ever played in the NHL before. He could be a wild card where he can be a stud like we found in a former Hawk, Dominic Cahoon, who we traded this offseason. But I can see that being a solid fourth line for the Hawks. Carpenter, being a good PK player, can fit into this lineup any night. But let's go over to the rotation. I have John Quenneville, Zach Smith, and Dylan Sekera. Yes, I have Dylan Sekera on the rotational players because Sekera, in 36 games of play last year, he only had 8 assists, where that's not good numbers to put up, where he had the worst puck luck I've ever seen. He hit the post so many times with the Blackhawks last year. But Quenneville, he's really never had an opportunity in a full-time NHL roster with the New Jersey Devils. We acquired him for John Hayden. I still think that's a good pickup for the Hawks, bringing in John Quenneville. And Zach Smith, we acquired him from Ottawa for Artem Anisimov. He can be another player that rotates in with Ryan Carpenter every other night. It's a good pickup to have as another player that can fit on the PK. I think that's a good setup for a rotational. So on the forward lines, as you can see, I have first line of Caggiula, Taves, and Kane. Second line of DeBrincat, Strome, and Nylander. Third line of Saad, Doc, and Shaw. Fourth line of Kubalik, Camp, and Carpenter. I think these are all good lines, and honestly, I think you can see these potentially be your lines for opening night in the Czech Republic. Alright, now we're into the defense of the team, where this team on the blue line has seen the most changes this offseason. As you can see, I do have the rotational set up for the Hawks defense, and it's 2 potential rookies for this year, or 2 best defensive prospects on the team, where it's Adam Boqvist and Nick Pedine, who potentially could make the defensive lineup this opening night this year, because as you can see, I do have where DeHaan may miss some time to start the 2019-2020 season due to the fact he did have a surgery this off season. But let's get into the D pairings, what I think will be for the full season after DeHaan does come back. In the first D pairing, I'm leaving it alone. I'm leaving it Gustafsson and Keith. That D pairing in the second half of the season was perfect. They gelled well. Keith had a great second half resurgence, and Gustafsson had a 60-point season as a defenseman. That is good numbers by a defender. I do like having those two on as a defensive pairing. Second D pairing, I do have Calvin DeHaan and Connor Murphy. This is more of a shutdown D pairing. Murphy's not afraid to take shot blocks, nor is Calvin DeHaan. DeHaan is a good shot blocking defenseman that's great for a team that needs that on their roster. I like having DeHaan paired up with Murphy because that is a good shutdown D pairing. It reminds me a little bit of Nicholas Jarmerson and Johnny Oduya when we had them on the Blackhawks. They were a good, strong shutdown D pairing. It was a strong D pairing to have when we had it. But the third D pairing does scare me a little bit because they are a little bit slower. And it's Olli Maatta and Brent Seabrook. Yes, I do have Brent Seabrook on the third D pairing, but I could see him potentially playing second D pairing minutes, depending on Calvin DeHaan and his injury recovery. The thing is, the reason why I have these two players on the third D pairing, it's because they are going to have less minutes as a defensive pairing, which kind of is needed at Brent Seabrook's time, which is a shame. I'm still a fan of Brent Seabrook. I respect him enough where I am not angry at him at all, but it's still in my opinion, it is a defensive pairing that's a little bit slower. We'll have to the Hawks will have to subtract some defensive minutes and give some to the first and second D pairing this year, because the third D pairing I honestly think won't be at the best defensive pairing at all this year. But they will probably be good enough to put up some point production and some defensive production. So I think that's how my defensive pairings work out, and I do want to hear what you guys think about the defensive pairings and even the offensive pairings. But I want to go into the rotational again, where I do have Boqvist and Badin on the rotation, where I am seeing a lot of reports that Adam Boqvist does want to try and attempt to make it go pro this year, which for all means, if he thinks he's ready, good luck. And honestly, Nick Badin is another defenseman that could show as a good hard-nosed defender that can put up some points if needed. Boqvist is more of an offensive defenseman he reminds me a little bit of Erik Gustafsson, but Boqvist is starting to develop his game enough where he could potentially crack the opening night roster depending on how his training camp goes. But I do think we'll see one of these two in the lineup this year. Who knows who will make it this year. Now we get into the goaltending, where honestly, in my opinion, and I've seen it going around a little bit also, the Hawks may have one of the best goalie tandems if Corey Crawford stays healthy. This is how I see it as. They're going to run it as a 1A, 1B situation for the Chicago Blackhawks, where Corey Crawford gets an X amount of starts, Robin Lehner gets an X amount of starts. I think they're going to split the starts between each other, just because Lehner is coming in after a Vezina candidate season where he was runner-up in the Vezina votes this year. Corey Crawford's still coming off of now 2 seasons of concussions, but when he was in the lineup last year, he did show that he can still have it in him to play some good games. Lehner, on the other hand, this is him pretty much coming in, ticked off that the New York Islanders basically gave up on him after he had a hell of a season as a goalie. And it's coming into the Chicago Blackhawks with a chip on his shoulder and potentially to try and become our future starter. But if you see, I do have a third string goalie on here as Colin Delia. Delia comes in if Corey Crawford gets another injury, or vice versa if Robin Leonard gets an injury. He will be our third streamer this year, but he'll spend most of his time down in Rockford developing his game. This is a good situation to have right now for the Chicago Blackhawks, having two goalies on 1 year with 1 year left on contracts. Leonard signing a 1-year deal, Corey Crawford on his final year of his contract. This could set up for a good competition in net for the Hawks, and Corey Crawford, when he does have a good backup goalie, even though I'm not saying this as a full-on starter, full-on backup situation, Corey Crawford does play a lot better when he does have a good backup goalie behind him. I think he likes the competition of having a good goalie behind him setting up, and this potentially could be a good battle for that net this year. I can see a good run between these two goalies, and hopefully a good healthy season. That's what I'm hoping for. But honestly, I do like how the Hawks look in net this year. It looks like a strong goalie situation the Hawks have. But I want to go into my predictions for this year, so here we go. Yes, the 2019-2020 predictions. I have two sets of predictions on this setup for the Hawks where I want to go in and predict where I could see us potentially ending in the standings this season of the Central Division. And I do have a prediction on a player this year because, frankly, it's his contract year and I'm expecting a big season out of him. So I want to go into my predictions, and it should be interesting on where I have him, because in the standings wise, because I could see the Hawks potentially ending in 5th, all the way up to potentially 3rd in the Central Division standings. That's how good the Central Division is this year. I think the Hawks are better than 3 other teams, though, so I can say probably at least 4th in the division. Why not? So here we go. Oh, yes. The Central Division standings. This is an interesting matchup right now. I only did it by the points-wise and standings format for this year, just because I didn't want to get into predicting how many wins, how many losses, how many overtime losses. That's too much. I just decided I'm going to just predict how many points each team potentially could end their season off with. For first place in winning the Central Division, I have the Dallas Stars. Why, you may ask? With 110 points for the Dallas Stars, I think that's capable because they did bring in good leadership this year for picking up a good player in Joe Pavelski. I wish he was a Hawk, but he ended up going to Dallas because they had the money to sign him. And frankly, I do see the Dallas Stars probably as the best team in the Central Division going into this year. But it is this division is the toughest division to win this year, in my opinion. The Central Division is the best division in the NHL. So let's go into the second place. I know, it's the St. Louis Blues. I hate them too, and I know you guys will hate them as well. With 108 points, I have the St. Louis Blues in the Central Division. Not winning the division, but coming 2 points shy of winning the division title after a Stanley Cup year. I don't want to see them in this high. I would like to see them down low in the standings, but honestly, I don't see that happening. They have most of their same team as they did, winning the Stanley Cup. Frankly, that's a good thing for a team after winning a Stanley Cup. Losing players, I know how it is, because the Hawks lost players after winning cups, and it did hurt the team. but they basically have the same roster going as they did this last season. So I have them with 108 points in the year. But at third place, as you can see, I do have the fourth place of the Hawks right behind the Colorado Avalanche with 100 points. The reason why I have Colorado ending the season off with 100 points, I just think they have that roster that could potentially make a small leap into top 3 status in the Central Division, where the Hawks, I think they are going to battle it out with Colorado a lot this year because we don't have to face Varlamov anymore. Thank God that guy was a Hawks killer. But honestly, I think the Colorado squeaks the third seed out of the Chicago Blackhawks in this run. I do see it potentially moving around where it could be the Hawks maybe ending third in this division. That's why I have the Hawks at 99 points. So here we go for the fifth seed. I have the Trashville Predators, that is. I feel like they're going to fall off a little bit this year because Pekka Rinne did show that he's starting to go on his decline in his years in the NHL. And I could see them potentially having issues with that. Yes, they have the defense, but no, they don't have the power play, I don't think, to help them again, because their power play was dead last in the NHL. Historically, the worst power play in NHL history last season, and I don't think they have that team still to potentially make. I think their window is over for potentially winning the cup and hanging pointless banners in their rafters. Sixth place, yes, I have the Winnipeg Jets at 85 points. This is where I feel like it starts falling off for the division. Winnipeg lost a lot of defense this year, and that's not a good thing to lose. And honestly, I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to have that rough season in them, where they are going to probably be 6th or 7th in the Central Division. So here we go for the 7th place. I have the Minnesota Wild at 79 points in the division. Yes, I feel like the Wild are going to have a rough season this year. I think they honestly are the worst team in the division and potentially will be last place. I like how they did bring in Matt Zuccarello. I do like how they brought in Ryan Hartman, but frankly, they didn't do enough to address their issues of being the oldest team in the NHL. And I don't think that helps. So that's why I have the Minnesota Wild in dead last of the Central Division for the second year in a row. So let's get into my player prediction for one player I feel like who's going to have a big season coming. Yes, the big player I feel like going to have a huge season production and points this year is Alex DeBrincat. He's shown it last year that he was going to have a big season, and I feel like he's going to show it again. As you can see, I put his stats from his rookie season in 2017-18, his stats from 2018-19 in here, and then stats that I think that the Cat can put up this year. In his rookie year, Alex DeBrincat led the Chicago Blackhawks in goals with 29 goals in the season. He had a total of 24 assists for a total of 53 points on the year. Good numbers for a rookie, and he's honestly got snubbed from Calder vote in my opinion, but don't get me started on that. In 2018-19, the Cat played all 82 games again. He put up 41 goals from just following that up from a 29-goal season. That's a hell of a season from just a change in point production right there. Assists, he had 35. Assists is about same on pace as his rookie year in total, basically. And his points, he put up 76 points on the season. Yes, 76. If he had a full season with Dylan Strome on as his center, I think he would have had a whole lot more points. That's why I'm saying in this upcoming season of 2019-2020, I can see this out of him. I could see him put up 46 to 50 goals on the year. He can potentially put up 40 to 44 assists on the year. I think I may have said assists instead of goals on the 46 to 50 goals on the year. That's what I meant to say. But I can see the Cat putting up those numbers this year because it's a contract year and he's going to want to make some money. So in total, about points, I'm going to say 86 to 94 points on the year. Yes, I think he could potentially have at least 10 more points as his second year in the NHL. And I can potentially see him really blowing his point production out of water and showing that he is that elite, talented, young scorer that can put up 50 goals on a season. I can see DeBrincat being that type of player. He is that good, and I can see it in him as a future 50-goal scorer. And maybe it comes this year. It is a contract year, so I can potentially see it. So that's my prediction for Alex DeBrincat on his final year of his entry-level deal, and I think DeBrincat's in for a big payday. Alright, guys. Well, you guys got my thoughts and takes from my line predictions, my predictions on where the Hawks may be standing in the season, my thoughts on the goalies, my thoughts on the defense, my thoughts on the offense, and even my thoughts on what DeBrincat could potentially do this season. So in the comments down below, I want to hear what your thoughts are going into this year on who you think could potentially come out as one of the biggest dark horses in the Blackhawks this year as a player, where they may stand in the season this year, and who you want to see, who you think will have a big production and points this year. So I want to hear those in the comments down below, and thank you for watching the broadcast. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And most of all, let's go Hawks!